Part 83. Preparations for Battle. The Prophet began organizing his army, assessing each fighter individually. He then sent back a dozen or so companions for being too young, as the cutoff point was 15 years of age. These adolescents included the likes of Abdullah ibn Umar, Zayd ibn Thabit, Usama ibn Zayd ibn Haritha, Abu Sa'id al-Hudri, and Zayd ibn Arqam. Many of these youngsters tried to argue their way back into the army, but the Prophet refused with two exceptions. First, 14-year-old Rafi ibn Khadij pleaded his case, and his relatives assured the Prophet that he was an expert archer despite his age. The Prophet accepted his request, and in response, Samura ibn Jundub began to argue his own case, claiming to be stronger than Rafi. Some narrations even note that he began wrestling Rafi to prove his superiority. The Prophet duly accepted his plea. These inspiring youths desperate to fight are indeed a far cry from the seasoned veterans who turned their backs in cowardice. The Muslims were positioned facing Medina. To their backs were the plains of Uhud, and to their left was Jabal Ainain, now called Jabal al-Ruma, Archer's Hill. They were situated in a manner whereby they were covered on all sides except for one stretch of land, and in that open area was Jabal Ainain. The Prophet quickly identified that area as the only weak link, and so he ordered 50 of the best archers to remain on the hill at all costs. This ingenious tactic ensured that the Muslims were protected from every angle, except for a 300-meter opening, which would be utilized for their offensive attack. The beauty of this setup was in nullifying the Quraysh's massive numerical advantage. By forcing the Quraysh through a 300-meter space, their surplus of 2,300 men was made instantly redundant. The Prophet stressed the gravity of the archers' role in this plan, instructing, "Protect us with your arrows, for their horses will not charge forth if they see arrows. Even if you see the birds eating our corpses, do not leave your places until I send for you." As the sun rose on the 15th of Shawwal, the Prophet began motivating his troops. He unsheathed his sword and asked, "Who will take this sword from me and fight?" Everyone volunteered themselves, especially the Prophet's cousin, Zubair ibn al-Awwam. The Prophet then asked, "Who will take this sword, with its due right?" Silence ensued. Then Abu Dujana asked,
"And what is its due right, O Messenger of Allah?"
The Prophet answered, "That you fight with it until it breaks or is no longer usable." Abu Dujana then confirmed,
"I will take it with its due right, O Messenger of Allah."
Abu Dujana was a formidable force with a reputation in battle that preceded him. He had a red turban, called the Turban of Death, reserved for the severest of battles. He donned the turban and began to walk up and down with an arrogant swagger, chest and shoulders puffed out. The Prophet remarked, "Allah despises this type of walking except in this time and this place." Years later, Zubair mentioned how he felt disappointed that he was passed over for Abu Dujana, as he was the Prophet's close companion and cousin, so he followed Abu Dujana to see what was so special about him. He then observed as Abu Dujana obliterated every single one of his opponents in quick succession, using the utmost skill, strength, and passion. Zubair conceded that Abu Dujana indeed stayed true to his vow and gave the blessed sword its due right. Before the battle even began, the Quraysh attempted to disrupt the Muslim army. A messenger came within shouting distance and said,
"I have been sent by Abu Sufyan. He is saying, 'O people of Medina, leave us to our cousins, for we have nothing against you.'"
The Ansar were furious with such an offer and hurled vulgar insults and profanities towards him. Abu Dujana's haughty strut and the Ansar's foul language are to be taken in context. Each circumstance requires its own behavior and etiquette, and when faced with life and death in the heat of war, there is no room for courteousness. A man called Abd Amr ibn Sayfi, known as Abu Amir al-Rahib, the monk, then stepped forward to Abu Sufyan. Abu Amir was one of the foremost leaders of the Aus before the Prophet arrived, equivalent to Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul amongst the Hazraj. When the Prophet migrated to Medina, Abu Amir could not stomach feigning his Islam, so he left Medina in protest, waiting for a moment such as this to reclaim his city. Abu Amir said to Abu Sufyan,
"Leave this to me. for my people have always respected and honored me. You will see the power I hold over them."
He then walked out towards the Ansar, saying,
"O Aus, it is me, Abu Amir."
Before he could continue, the Aus yelled back,
"May Allah curse you and give you no pleasure. You are not Abu Amir al-Rahib, the monk. You are Abu Amir al-Fasik, the dissolute."
Abu Amir was so taken aback that he could not muster a response. He returned to Abu Sufyan and timidly remarked,
"My people are afflicted with some sort of disease."
As demonstrated throughout the Seerah, the bonds of Islam cannot be comprehended by one who has not tasted the sweetness of Iman.